Welcome back. I'm here with the Twilight Waters simple song file open. Hopefully you've got that open as well. If not, you can go ahead and do that. And once you've got it open, it would be good just to listen to the song one time. So to do that, all you have to do is push the space bar on your computer keyboard and it will begin the song playing. And then pushing space again stops it. So once you get to the end of the song, you can push space to stop it. And this little button down here next to the square returns us to the beginning of the song. So once you've completed listening to the song and then stopped it, you can push this button to come back to the start. And then we're going to begin talking about the different parts of the song view here, which is really the heart of Studio One and where we're going to be doing all our composing. So please go ahead and listen to the song now and then come back to the video once you're done. First and kind of most importantly to know is along the left side is our tracks. Now the tracks are basically the instruments that are in our song. And in this case, I've separated the instruments from the original session that I had into a number of different audio tracks that contain things like the jazz drums, which if I push play, you can hear some jazz drums there. I've got some electronic, more electronic sounding drums, some claps, some cymbals, some other elements that are rhythmic. And then down here I've got some instruments like a Rhodes, keyboard, bass, a lead synth, kalimba, clarinets, and so on. So this left portion of the screen basically organizes and shows us what instruments are in our song, what's available to us, and what we're hearing. So starting from up here, we have a track folder. As you can see, this track has a folder icon, and if I click it, it hides or shows all its contents. This is just for organizational purpose, like to keep things clean. If you only wanted to look at the tracks down here, we could just clean up the view by hiding all those tracks. So I've called this drums and perk. Perk is just short for percussion. So that includes things that are not specifically drums, but are related to the rhythm or groove of the song. So within this track folder, I've got a number of tracks, as I just showed you, that are a variety of drums and percussion sounds. And if we take a look at the leftmost side of each track, we can see a color. Now this is the first thing to know, is that if we click on the color, we can change this to whatever we want, and this is totally up to you. This is just for organizing things and making things look nice. So maybe you would put all your drums as red and all your synths as blue, or however that is for you to quickly find what you need to find when you're looking through your song view. I'll just leave it as to what I had it in the default, like this. Next to that, we see a track number, and besides that, we have the mute button. So if I'm playing these jazz drums, incredibly, it mutes the track. Anything on the track, the whole track's muted. So it doesn't matter where we are in the song. That instrument gets muted. So in case something is like, we know, okay, I know already these jazz drums sound good, I don't need to hear them right now. What I'm really trying to focus on is, say, the lead sound. So I might mute the jazz drums so that I'm not hearing them, they're not distracting me. Next to that is the solo button. This is kind of the opposite of mute. So if we're hearing a section of the song like this, where there's a lot of stuff going on, and I push solo, it enables us to hear just that track. So we can do this for multiple tracks. Say I wanted to hear just the Rhodes, just the bass, and the kind of electronic drum here. So the solo button really lets us hone in on specific tracks and hear what they sound like together, which is extremely useful for a number of reasons. And these two buttons together, mute and solo, kind of are the heart of how we decide what we're hearing when we're playing back the song. Of course, when we finish the song, we want to hear everything, but while we're composing it, it's important to be able to choose what elements we're hearing and what elements we're not. Next to the solo button, we find a record button. And this actually isn't to start recording, but this is to arm the track to record. That means to prepare the track to be recorded onto. Now it's grayed out right now, and so is this next button, meaning that this track cannot be recorded onto. So when we start composing our own music, we're going to be using instruments that we're going to record with, and this will be available to be clicked, and then we can record onto that track. The button right next to it is the monitor button, and when we're recording audio through a microphone, this is going to let us hear what the microphone is hearing. By pushing this button on and off, we can tell, like if we're speaking into a microphone, we can hear our own voice. Or if we have a guitar plugged into our computer, we'll be able to hear the guitar. So right now it's of no use to us, but when we get into recording things, that's going to make more sense. Next, very importantly, is the name. So if we double click this, we can edit the name. Say I want to just Jazziest Drums. That's even better. And I highly recommend you name everything. Keeping things organized is, like I've learned over the years, just the best practice to get into. So as soon as I have a new track, I name it. And then if I have some tracks that are similar, I put them in a folder and I color them a certain way. The more that you can stay organized, the easier it will be to move quickly when you're composing, instead of constantly having to look, where was that drum track I had that had that one drum hit, and it'll take you 5 minutes just to find the track. Just getting in the habit of naming and putting things in a good order will be really helpful to you. So double clicking the name lets you edit it. Underneath that, we have a slider that determines the volume of the track. So I'm going to solo this once more, and I'll move the slider around. As you can tell, this is just making it quieter and louder. So adjusting volume is part of what we call mixing, which is essentially making the song sound good, trying to get a balance between the instruments so that they work well together. And this is really quick and easy access to change the volume of any instrument we've got. Below that, we have the option to choose what's called an input. An input is when you're interested in recording audio, like recording a microphone or recording a guitar or a keyboard, something that you can plug into your computer, this is where you're going to choose that. So my audio interface gives me a couple options, mic 1 and mic 2, and if you don't have an audio interface, you may have a microphone built into your computer or laptop, or you might have a microphone on your headphones, and then you'll be able to choose those inputs from here and record through that microphone. For now, since in this session we have no need to record anything, we'll just leave that blank. And this next button is telling us, is the track stereo or mono? Stereo means using left and right speakers independently, so the left speaker can have different sound coming out of it than the right speaker, and mono means both the left and right speakers have exactly the same sound that comes out of them. This will become clearer as to why you would want one or the other when we start recording things or using synths. Next to that, we have this icon. And this icon is just there to tell us what kind of track this is. So in this case, we've got an audio track. That's what this little audio waveform means, whereas this is a folder track. And there's other kinds of tracks that will have different icons so that we can just quickly look at our tracks list and know what we're looking at. So beside the tracks list, we have the timeline, and this is really where we're going to be spending most of our time in Studio One, kind of editing and rearranging and moving things around. And what we're going to be moving around are events. These are events, these little blocks of audio that we're looking at here. So in the next video, we're going to learn how to edit these and do all sorts of cool stuff with them. At the top of the timeline, we have this ruler. Now this ruler is measuring musical bars. So you may know what that is if you've studied music at all before. If not, I will explain it in depth in another video, but we can see here we're starting at bar 3, and then we're on beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. Now we're at bar 4, beat 1, beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4, bar 5, and so on. This basically creates a grid for us on which we can place our events and keep everything lined up and perfectly in time. Now beneath the timeline view, we have our transport bar, and this has a bunch of information. We're going to do just a quick overview about it right now. On the left, we have a MIDI monitor, and this tells us if we're receiving any signal, like this, from our MIDI keyboard. So in front of me I have a MIDI keyboard, which is basically looks like a piano but doesn't make any sound. And this is just giving information to Studio One that we can use to play different instruments. Now, if we don't have a MIDI keyboard, that doesn't matter. There's a lot of ways that we can control instruments. We don't need a MIDI keyboard, but it does make life a little easier. Next to that, we have a performance meter, and this is telling us how our computer is doing in terms of running the session. So as our session gets more and more instruments in it, more and more effects in it, this meter is going to start to go up. If I play this song right now, almost nothing is happening because this song is very simple in terms of there's just audio tracks with almost no effects on them, and it doesn't really take much for my computer to be able to run that. So I have a lot of room to go with my CPU performance there. Next to that is cache activity. This is also related to how your computer is handling the information in your session. Beside that, we have some information about our sample rate, which we'll learn about when we create our first song, and how much delay our plugins are creating for us, because the computer has to take some time to calculate the synthesizers and effects and other things that we're using in our session and play it back properly, and that time that it takes is displayed here. This is how much lag or latency or delay it takes before the computer can complete those calculations and then play us back the song. Next to that, we have our maximum recording time. So as you can see, I have 10 days and 22 hours that are available for me to record on the hard drive that I'm using. Beside that, we have a view that tells us how many seconds or minutes we are into the song. So if I push play again, we see that going up. And next to that is very similar, but it's measuring bars instead of seconds. So I'm 17 bars into the song now. Beside that, we have some controls that help us navigate the timeline. So this furthest left one takes us to a marker. Now this song has no markers, so this isn't going to do anything for us. But when we get further into creating our own compositions, we can mark out certain parts of the song, and then we can move between those parts of the song using this button to go to the previous marker and this button to go to the next marker. This is rewind, this is fast forward, and then next to that we have a return to start or return to zero bar. So if we push this, our white playhead there, I'll do it again. Here's the playhead now at the middle of bar 7, and I push this, and it goes back to the beginning of bar 1. This is stop, of course, so if it's playing, we can push stop, and we stop. This is play, which I'm just using spacebar. Really, all these controls I don't ever touch. I just use my keyboard and my mouse instead. It's easier for me. So if I want to play, I push space. If I want to stop, I push space again. If I want to go somewhere in the song, I just click along the ruler and push play. To me, this is much easier than coming down here and using these controls, but they are here in case that's the way you like to work. Next to that, we have record, and that starts our recording. So that's important to know because we're going to be doing a lot of recording when we're composing our own songs. But again, it's easier to use a keyboard shortcut than it is to come down here and push record every time. Next to that, we have a loop button. This activates a loop, that blue bar at the top, which basically means that when we get to the end of that blue bar, it goes back to the beginning. So that's a pretty cool feature we'll learn a lot about. Next to that, we have some numbers that tell us where the loop is. This is the left side of the loop, and this is the right side of the loop. I can't say I ever use these. I just do it by hand and grab the loop and move it to where I want. Next to that, we have some options for recording. This is different settings we can use to customize the way things get recorded in Studio One. And beside that, we have some options for our metronome. If you don't know what a metronome is, it's that thing that goes and keeps you on time while you're trying to play a drum part or a piano part or whatever it is that you're trying to record. Next to that, we have our time signature. For those of you who've studied music, you probably know what this is, but we'll talk about it in a future video. And next to that is our tempo, which is kind of how fast or slow the song is. Then we have a meter over here that is our master volume. So when we're running through a certain track, we can see the master volume, like the total volume of all the tracks together. But again, this is something I'm not really interested in using. I would rather use the mix view which we're gonna check out in another video. So that's it for the transport bar. Along the top, we have some tools that we can use to edit our events that we're gonna get into in the next video, and a few other options that aren't important to us at the moment, but this is kind of where you select how you interact with the events and information that are in the song view. So I hope that gives you a clearer picture of what we're looking at, and all this is gonna become second nature to you, really simple once you start using it all. So I'll see you in the next video when we're gonna learn how to edit these events.